fearing what John Ashcroft told them, voted for the Patriot Act, and it passed, and the Senate voted for it, and with 2 dissents, it passed, and the President signed it.
We in the Judiciary Committee conducted, I believe, 11 or 12 public hearings. Our subcommittee, the Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security, we were involved with 9 public hearings. And when some of the opponents of the Patriot Act contend that this was not thoroughly examined, that's hogwash. It was very thoroughly examined as a result of 11 hearings.
The Patriot Act was being debated openly and publicly until the anthrax scare. And in the anthrax scare, all bets were off. New provisions were added into what was the version of the Patriot Act that came out of the House Judiciary Committee. And it was so hastily put together and the votes so hastily scheduled that not enough copies had been printed by the White House printing office for every member of Congress to have received it.
Now you may say, well, what about the First Amendment? The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. But the Patriot Act says if you tell anyone, your spouse, your lawyer, your priest, your best friend, a judge in a federal courtroom, that's right, every challenge of the Patriot Act has been an anonymous challenge, because if you reveal to a judge in a courtroom that you received one of these self-written search warrants, you'll be arrested when you walk outside the courtroom. Congress just forgot about the First Amendment.
Then all of these various delicts have been compounded by the Patriot Act that added new exemptions, new clauses, new gimmicks that simply make our police and intelligence services less accountable.
What about the Fourth Amendment? What about the requirement of a judge before the government can get information from a financial institution? Congress said, forget about it. The times are too tough. It's too difficult. We don't want another 9/11.
The President chose to do secretively, to order the National Security Agency to begin to carry out a massive collection of information against American citizens, clear violations of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, the FISA Act that you were referring to, of 1978, which was also intended to get around Article 4 of the Constitution, illegal intrusions into our lives, and to at least provide some kind of court sanction.
Various forms of spying that the current administration has pretty much admitted to engaging in, and the way that they always admit it, is quite interesting too, because it's always for our safety.
Here's the bargain. Give me your freedom and I'll keep you safe. It has never worked. It makes us less free and unsafe.
Well, it's all based on fear. It's all based on fear. And post 9/11 is a prime example of that. The Patriot Act, you create an atmosphere of fear, and then you undermine civil rights legislatively, and ultimately the underpinnings of our democracy are threatened by that much more than they are by the terrorists.
By fear-mongering, it helps them kind of consolidate power and encourage people to give up more liberties so that they can do what they want to.
Today, the President tries to say, because of the Commander-in-Chief clause in the Constitution, if I say it's a matter of national security, anything I do is legal, and nobody can touch me on it. That's something new, and what we keep wondering, when will the Supreme Court wake up and begin to pay attention to what we in this country are about to lose, our civil rights.
Congress has lost its backbone as the defender of the institution. The history of the 20th century expansion of presidential power is to get broader and broader and to begin to make more and more of these claims of inherent executive powers, to imagine emergencies even when they're not really emergencies, and to justify the exercise of power in that way.
There are dictators all over the world that the United States and Britain and any of the other Western countries haven't done anything to stop them for their genocide and for their actions in their own countries. But because Iraq has oil, I think that's the one thing that makes the biggest difference on why we're there now.
Why aren't we in Darfur? Joey Cheek is an Olympic gold medal winning speed skater. In 2006, he donated his winnings to the Right to Play organization, serving Darfuri refugees in Chad. What has the government done?
Darfur, for example, there we've been dragging our feet tremendously. This is something that people find rather difficult to understand, the Europeans especially, because we had always sort of taken a leadership position in helping people who were in dire straits.
I have today signed an executive order providing for the establishment of a Peace Corps.
The richest, most powerful nation on the planet has declared that a genocide has occurred. And this is all in the wake of Rwanda, and has stepped back and watched it continue. What would you think of us?
Well, they'd be afraid. They might even be terrified. They might even regard us as the rogue superpower, or as a nation that the planet simply can't tolerate to continue with those kinds of views.
Genocide is the deliberate and systematic destruction of a national, political, racial, ethnic, or cultural group. Modern democratic governments are not known to have committed domestic genocide. Documented cases of this are seen in countries whose governments are authoritarian, dictatorial, or totalitarian.
Since the end of the Cold War, we were going to have a new world order and intervene in different places to protect human rights. And that was all brought, came crashing down with the Rwandan genocide in 1994, when nobody stepped in as 800,000 people were killed in 100 days. And yet it seems to be playing out again in Darfur, since that crisis has now been going on for about as long as the war in Iraq. So, whatever we do now is going to be too little too late.
I think Darfur region, it is a shame that the United States just talks about genocide and wouldn't act.
We know when we do evil things. It was Ronald Reagan who invented the phrase for the Soviet Union, evil empire. But I also have no doubt that today we are the evil empire.
The price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men.
The government's unconstrained. They can do what they think they can get away with, and they've gotten away with a tremendous amount so far. So we can only work to try and get the beast under control, bring this rogue superpower under control. Without another war,
there can be the potential for a rogue element if it's coupled with radical right-wing ideology, and it always is, it seems to be, because that's the sort of personality that gravitates to that world.
The World Court found that what we did was illegal, which is true, and as a result of that, in the minds of people, we look at the United States as a rogue country.
The president has engaged in activities that are clearly not authorized in the Constitution for him to do. That after all, he got a vote to invade Iraq by sending to the Congress a national intelligence estimate that he and the authors of the CIA all knew was dishonest when they sent it to them.
None of it had anything to do with weapons of mass destruction, terrorism, 9/11, or Iraqi democracy, or anything good for the Iraqi people.
Now, one of the big problems here would be they could fast forward this thing into a full-bore fascist police state as the worst outcome if they staged another 9/11, which I don't doubt they would do when they see the need.
The constitutional system, that's what's come apart. It's clearly a shambles. If today you believe the government in Washington bears some resemblance to that document written in Philadelphia in 1787, the burden of proof is on you.